Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be getting started in about 3 minutes or so. Share this to all of your pages. You're in the state of Connecticut, outside the state of Connecticut. Let's get the views on this up because uh, we're going to talk about something that a lot of people want to dance around. But we're going to get some truths out here. Uh, so we're going to wait a few minutes. Please like, please share, because we got something to talk about on today. And let me know if you're with me. Feel free to comment so I can see that you're out there. Thank you, the Black Votes Matters Coalition, for inspiring this conversation. So please like and share. I'm going to do the same. So give me a few minutes. Hello, thanks for joining us. Please share this. I want to take up a few moments of your time. I'm going to do the same right now. Please like and share. Thanks for joining. I'm going to start in a few minutes. I'm just going to share this post to my page so that I'm doing exactly what I asked you all to do. We're going to spend a few minutes today just kind of highlighting something that might be a little obvious to some, but just not unknown to others. So please share and like. And I'm going to get started in 1 minute. Please like and share. And we're going to get started. We'll get started as soon as I can share this myself too. So give me a moment. Connecticut, we need to talk about something that has not been spoken about probably out loud in some time, and that is why the Connecticut black vote matters. There's some history that we need to talk about that I think needs to be reflected upon in our Democratic Party in particular, because I think many of us are unaware of what's at stake and what's on the line for people of color in every election and every primary that happens. For those that are joining live, if you're able to share this post to my page, that would be very helpful. I'm having some issues on my other phone, but I'm just going to jump in and just make this very clear. In the statement that was stated in this post, in this live at this point, why the black vote matters in Connecticut. And why am I taking this moment out in this beautiful afternoon, standing in front of this gentleman that I'll talk about in a second, to talk about the black vote. All right, folks. Many of you all know me, but for those who don't, I am an alderman in the city of New Haven, which is the city council of the city of New Haven. I have been serving on that board for we're going on 10 years now, serving in that capacity, representing the neighborhood I actually grew up in. Born and raised here in the city of New Haven, so my roots grow deep here. And the history here is just really amazing. It's actually what inspired me to become an educator years ago. And I know many may not realize I'm actually a historian. I did study American history in particular, but I went on to achieve my master's in education with a focus on religious study because Black history is oftentimes steeped in the connection and the binding of the religion that kept us in terms of overcoming the many struggles that we faced here in American society. So that is the detailed reason as to the work that I've done um, in terms of this work, and I just want to pull on some knowledge today that I'm not sure a lot of people statewide are aware of. Um, so I'm going to talk about this gentleman really quick. This gentleman that's here uh, standing next to me, his name is William Lanson, and he went by King William Lanson because in the in the history of our state of Connecticut, I need to remind everyone that while this state oftentimes ends up on the progressive spectrum of policy and is a state leader and a lot of great things nationwide, a part of its founding, in particular New Haven's founding in 1638 or so, slavery was a part of its foundation in terms of its economic basis and um, just really it was just a way of American life back then. And this gentleman, around the 1880s, a New Haven resident, uh, former slave, uh, was a gentleman who was about his business and really made some very transformative changes in the city of New Haven as it pertains to uh, businesses and architecture um, and stoneworking in the city of New Haven. So if you're familiar with Long Wharf uh, in the city of New Haven, this gentleman is responsible for the creation and the expansion of Long Wharf as we know it. The stones came from upstate Connecticut. He was able to have the ingenuity and the wherewithal to understand that without a wharf and without a presence on the coast and centralization of businesses down on that end, that New Haven's economic future would be bleak. This gentleman is responsible for that. Now, getting to the reason why he was nicknamed King, and the other name that he also went by was Governor. Back in the 1800s in the state of Connecticut, um, while democracy was basically only for white land owning men who were able to vote during that time, the slaves, the African slaves that were here uh, in New Haven, Woodbridge, Derby, Seymour, Norwich, Hartford, they all had rich traditions that they carried with them from the African shores uh, here to the New World during that time. And one of those traditions included ensuring that every community um, had a say in the appointment of their leadership. Um, and usually that would come in the form of a tribal leader, a king, um, or anything to that nature. But here in America, there was the democratic process that was in its beginnings, and being able to create that space for the slave, the enslaved, and the freemen here in New Haven and across the state to choose their leaders. So they were able to actually have an election of what was called historically the black governors of the state. And William Lansing actually was a part of that rich history in terms of the founding and the expansion of that process to allow the slave men to actually be able to vote and be able to um, participate in a democratic process that unfortunately did not have them involved in terms of the actual running of the city. So uh, they were able to take care of their own community affairs on that level. William Lansing was a part of ensuring that the black vote, those that could vote, were able to vote. Uh, so the second point I want to raise here is about the economics that it took for William Lansing to actually run uh, for the governorship of the black community here in New Haven. It was dependent on the uh, enslavers' ability to have that funding to actually fund the campaign. Okay, now it sounds familiar. I'm bringing up these reasons for, I'm bringing up these points for a reason. So the first thing was there's a barrier to the vote, and they had to create a subversive process in order to run the affairs of the black community because they were not allowed to be a part of the process that was developing American society. That's one. Two, there is an economic barrier that's being developed that's dependent on the wealthy and the enslavers of the black community during that time. And then the third thing, and the third thing is kind of one of the reasons why many of you who are going to view this video had no idea about Mr. Lansing here, Governor Lansing. In his personal life, outside of politics, he was a stonemason, an architect, a quarryman. He worked very hard. He had to dive into the Long Wharf area in order to ensure the placement of the stones were correct, in order to ensure the architecture of and the land uh, measurements were in place to ensure a safe and secure wharf for the city of New Haven. Not only did he do that, but he actually owned property throughout New Haven on Upper State Street headed towards Hamden. And he owned a very prominent hotel. He was a businessman in the Wooster Square area. Unfortunately, um, due to his success at this hotel in Wooster Square, um, there were many complaints filed to the police department and local authorities to the point that they ended up shutting down his operation and his business. That devastated him. In his writings and in the writings of historians, local historians, it is told that unfortunately he fell into despair and alcoholism uh, because he was being targeted um, for trying to build what was a community of successful black business owners. Uh, and let me be clear about something. He actually was very open to individuals who did not have the privilege of being landowners. So, really, the immigrant community was very much a part of the work that he was doing. He couldn't do it alone. So, he built a very diverse community to come around and support the work that he was doing. Unfortunately, as I said, he fell into despair because of the loss of um, his businesses and the targeting. It was just becoming a bit overwhelming. And then the letters of history, uh, you know, everyone kind of forgot his name. And thankfully, thanks to the work of the Amistad Committee and the work of many individuals locally, his story at this time. And I just want to highlight a few things. I am the first um, African American candidate to explore running for Secretary of State here in the state of Connecticut, coming out of a rich tradition from New Haven, started by the work of Mr. Lanson here. Um, a lot of hard work has come and gone since the 1880s. A lot of individuals sacrificed their life, opportunities, um, family life to service, public service for the greater community. And oftentimes, as we're traveling the state, um, I know individuals like to avoid the conversation about race, uh, but the reason why I'm dedicating today's video to this conversation is because we can't forget where we came from and the comprehensive history here in the state of Connecticut when it comes to the disenfranchisement of the black vote in particular. Having two processes happening simultaneously, but only one of those systems empowering a very small subset of individuals to economic boom. And it is my theory that that's created a great gap in our class society. The gaps between the haves and the have-nots. Those that came to these shores to work from humble beginnings and not having access to the opportunity and the resources that's available to be successful and uh, prosper in this society. I come to this race exploring the statewide office of Secretary of State because I strongly believe this is a moment in time to correct some historic wrongs in the state around voting rights and around economic rights. And for those that are not aware, the job of the Secretary of State, as described by the state constitution, is as follows. You are the chief elections official and you are the chief administrative official of the business filings and the records of the state. This is not a legislative role. This is not, honestly, it's not a sexy position. It's a role that requires an understanding of where we've been, where we're going, and how to ensure that our democracy is safe, our democracy is expanding the franchise to those that have been historically disenfranchised, and how to bring economic opportunity and those resources to individuals like Mr. Lanson so that they don't have to experience what he experienced, it basically being taken away from him. Uh, it was very rare for an individual like him to be able to be in a situation like he was. Isn't it interesting that even in the present day in America, that there are still individuals who are fighting for economic opportunity. They're working 2 or 3 jobs trying to make it. But it just so happens to be in American society, the best way to level up and to get into the next class, so to speak, is to start a business. Well, Secretary of State's office is the starting place to start those businesses. Now, I know there are individuals that are wondering how to access those resources. It can become overwhelming. How do you know, Darryl? I know because I always call myself a serial entrepreneur. My wife and I, we've started a series of small businesses. And I know that it's always a start and go. You have the idea, and then, you come on a hurdle, and you always try to figure out how to make it, how to find the resources. You go to the website, you see all the filings and the paperwork, and you're wondering what's the first place to start, yes, there are places that have slowly developed across the state and cities and towns to kind of help folks along the way. But even once you get there, there's so many hurdles behind trying to get started. It is my goal. What I resolve that this race is going to be about the working class community. It's about representing a group of individuals right now throughout this pandemic. They were not able to necessarily be able to catch up during this time. They still had to work throughout this pandemic, and that's why I'm running. Many of you all know my story. It's a New Haven story. It's a Connecticut story. It's a story of individuals who come from many places who had to struggle and to work and to build and to come to a great place like America and the state of Connecticut. I often talk about how my parents hailed from the state of Georgia. They were coming up here to seek a better life, better opportunities. They were very young. Uh, they found themselves homeless one day on a park bench in Gulf Street Park, New Haven. And if it wasn't for their tenacity, their life could have just been there. But they chose not to. They decided to get up to find a good paying job. And not only did they find that, they were able to connect with the labor movement here in the city of New Haven to the point that they were able to get into a job training program, that they were able to access hope. And let me be clear about this. If it was not for unions in this country to level the playing field and provide the opportunities that have been provided for many of us, I know I would not be here. I know that. So it is important that the working class and unions and the labor movement be acknowledged and be a part of, I call it the new Connecticut, in terms of bridging the gap on this economy and providing the solutions that are absolutely necessary to bringing folks and to level up, plain and simple. If it wasn't for the work of my parents, and then of course going through the New Haven public schools, having the opportunity to go on to college, Fairfield U, going on to Fordham University, coming back home, and deciding to be an educator, but not only be an educator, but be a doer. I decided to run for public office, and that's what leads me here today. And of course, throughout those years, I've been able to become a nonprofit executive, overseeing many successful organizations, staffing, raising budgets, and just making it happen. Folks, I know for a fact that I am probably the poorest candidate running in this race, working, my wife, working for the Department of Children and Families as a social worker, my two beautiful daughters attending the New Haven Public Schools. It's about time we have a candidate that understands the struggle so that whenever you get to that Secretary of State's office, it won't be a series of questions that makes you frustrated when you get to the front door. It should be, welcome home. How can I help you, brother, sister, or whoever you are? And how can we make your dreams a reality? That's what I want to bring to this race, and that's what I brought to this race. Folks, there's a few hurdles like William Lansing faced when he ran for governor in his time. And that biggest thing is the economics, the money. In order to compete and to have an opportunity to be a part of a process called the Clean Elections Grant, we need as many individuals to give small donations upwards of $250 uh, for our campaign to run. And that's just the bottom line. We in order to run a good comprehensive campaign, you gotta reach a goal of about $86,000 to access what's called the Clean Elections Grant. Now, I'm not going to spend my time on why I also think that process is unfair, but I will say the mission and the purpose behind it is a good one, and that's to ensure that there's no corporate interests in the pockets of our candidates running. So that's a good thing. But in terms of accessing, um, there's still some tweaks that should be made with that system. Nevertheless, we're going for it. We're staying here. We're going all the way. In order to do that, we're simply asking that each and every one of you commit just $50 over the next month. We'll be crisscrossing the state as we have done since August to spread this message of hope, to spread the message of experience. I strongly believe that I'm one of the few candidates that actually have the direct on the ground experience that it takes to protect and secure our elections process, who actually understands the plight of the voter registrars and the town clerks, and most of all, who understand that it's time that we bridge the gap on this economic opportunity for folks to start their businesses and not feel frustrated by the process and the filing fees and so on. Go to the website, brackeenforct.org, and that is where you will find more about myself, the platform, and more importantly, the place for you to donate to fuel this campaign towards the future. Look, I just wanted to come live just to kind of remind folks that Connecticut Black vote still matters. The work that we've done to get to this point, it matters. And to the Connecticut Democratic Party, the voices of the community still matter. And when we come to that state convention on May 7th, the community will be present. And it is our hope that the advancement of this platform and this campaign matters to the Democratic Party in the state. I will be coming live periodically just to kind of have conversations like this. And I would like for you all to like, please share, and start the conversation about the communities that have been underrepresented and disenfranchised for hundreds of years. And thankfully, we now have the opportunity to resolve some of these issues. And I believe that's what my campaign's about. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I thank you all for the support, for those that have supported me and who know me and who understands what's on the line. I've worked my entire life for this moment, more than qualified, a candidate that has transparent background, who's spoken to the people, and who's trusted in this state. So I thank you. And again, please share this video as we talk about why the Connecticut Black vote, yeah, it matters.